So here's our first example of an equation of balance. And what we have here is our reaction of barium hydroxide, which is BaOH2, and hydrobromic acid, HBr, to produce barium bromide and water. Okay. Now, this is a fairly simple reaction and equation, so we can go ahead and use this and try to see if there's, well, basically work our way through it. So what our steps asked us to do was it asked us to first identify any elements that are present in both the reactants and the products, but only in one molecule. And so I see a couple of those. So the first one that I see that stands out to me is this barium. Barium is only in barium hydroxide and in my product, barium bromide. It's not in either of my other reactants or products respectively. Okay, so I can balance the barium. And we're done. Barium's already balanced. There's one barium on each side of the reactant. Or, I'm sorry, one side on the reactants and one on the products. Okay, next up, I've got hydrogen, which I'm skipping over oxygen, but I'm doing that intentionally. Hydrogen, I find, is right here, and it's right here, and it's right here. Hydrogen is not the next thing that we want to balance due to the fact that hydrogen is found in two reactants in one product. I don't want to balance that because of the fact that, well, my rule or my guideline was balance that which is in only one substance. So now I'm going to go back to that oxygen. Oxygen is found only in barium hydroxide and in water. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do after I balance barium is I want to balance my oxygen. Okay, so what do I have? On the reactant side, I've got 2 oxygen, and on the product side, I've got 1 oxygen. Okay, now that's pretty simple to balance. We just multiply this by 2, and so what that means is I'm going to write my first kind of incarnation of this and see how that unfolds. So I've got BaOH2. I didn't have to change a coefficient in front of that, plus HBr yields Ba, I didn't have to put a coefficient in front of any of these, Br2, plus, now I got to put a 2 in front of H2O. And when I put that 2 in front of H2O, now I've balanced my oxygens. So if I go back and look at this equation, I'm going to ask myself, and I'm going to try to do it like this. So reactant, products. I suppose I should change that, react. Okay, so the first element that I want to look at is BaOHBr. So those are my 4 different substances, my 4 different elements. Is barium balanced based on this one right here? Yes, I've got 1 barium on the reactant side, 1 barium on the product side. Oxygen, I've got 2 oxygen on the reactant side, and how many on the product side? I've got 2 oxygen on the product side. Okay, next up is hydrogen. How many hydrogen do I have on my reactant side versus on my product side? Well, on my reactant side, I've got, here's 2, because I've got that coefficient outside of my parentheses, and then here's a third one. So I have a total of 3 hydrogen on my reactant side, and I've got a 2 subscript and a 2 coefficient, so I've got 4 hydrogen on my product side. Okay, so this is, I'm going to go ahead and put a little star by that. I'm going to have to reconcile that. I'm going to have to balance that. So then I've got my bromine. I've got 1 Br here, and I've got 2 Br here. So I've got 1 on my reactant side, 2 on my product side. So another thing that I'm going to have to balance. Okay, do you see how this is my, I guessed basically, I balanced one thing, and now I checked it. So that's the guess and check method. So this next thing that I'm going to do is, well, what would be the easiest thing to do? If I tried to balance my hydrogens, then that's going to present a little bit of a problem, because when I try to balance them, it's balancing an even number and an odd number. Okay, so that could be a little bit tricky. But if I look at my bromine, which remember, my bromine is a good candidate to go after because it's only found in one molecule, or on the reactant side and on the product side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 2 coefficient in front of here. And whenever I put that 2 coefficient in front of there, what does that do? And I'm just going to go back here. Now all of a sudden, I've got 2 bromine. Did it change the number of barium when I put this 2 coefficient in here? It didn't. Did it change the number of oxygen? It did not. Did it change the number of hydrogen? It did. I went from having 3 hydrogen on this side, 2 here, 1 here, to now I've got 2 here, 2 hydrogen here, and 2 hydrogen here. So now I've gone from a total of 3 hydrogen on my reactant side to 4 hydrogen on my reactant side. And lo and behold, since I didn't impact my barium or my oxygen, and I balanced my bromine, I kind of maybe unintentionally balanced my hydrogen. So those are all balanced. So this is one method to balance a chemical reaction. Now, in the next example, I'm going to show you the way that I like to solve balance, or the way that I like to balance chemical reactions. I hope this is helpful.